So the way that I would analyse a property, number one, why are they selling?
Is location a big one?
A massive one. The most important thing is buying well, and that's how you're going to make money. I would always go for properties that have really good bones. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this industry is renovation equals more money. I'd never move any plumbing. You might think it's adding value, but it's going to cost you a lot more in time and in money.
Have you found anything weird?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
So I didn't want to know this, but
Do you have any advice for people who are maybe wanting to get started but aren't starting from a big base?
definitely.
Gosh, we are very proud to be partnering with Trade Me for this property mini-series. So for anyone that has followed the curve for a little while, I have spoken about my property buying journey quite a bit to the point where people are like, what is happening? What is taking so long? We are doing a 3-part podcast mini-series in partnership with Trade Me Property. And whilst I'm not quite there yet on the actual purchase part, which we will get to for the rest of this episode, what I have been doing in the meantime is dream scrolling. And dream scrolling being looking through all of the amazing properties that are available on Trade Me Property, because there are more properties there than there are anywhere else. And so this has been quite exciting for me. You know, I've been looking at, let's be honest, things are quite out of my budget right now. But to see what's available from like seaside escapes, which, you know, one day I'll get there, to like amazing properties that are available in the CBD or centres of towns in New Zealand, it really is the best place to see absolutely all of my potential options. So if you are in a position where you're thinking, do you know what? I'd love to buy property, or I'm interested in what's happening in the property market and I want to know what things are going for, then Trade Me is the place to look. So thank you so much to Trade Me Property for empowering this conversation. And why not open endless doors with Trade Me Property? You can download the app on iOS or jump on your web browser, have a good old dream scroll, and if you see any good ones, please flick them my way. This is very exciting because we've got someone on the podcast who we actually had at our very first event.
I know.
Back in our days when we were babies.
I look back at those events and I die. I'm just like, just how stiff I was, how gross the presentations were, just everything about them.
It's quite funny because I remember I'd get to the end of the event and I'd be like, I didn't really understand anything. I didn't really learn anything, but I just thought it was because I had shit attention span.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, no, you really do have to speak to someone that knows nothing about investing in a different way.
Anyway.
Could you give us, so Alex is sitting next to us and actually probably could give us some feedback on how those first events were.
I thought they were great.
But did you actually?
No, I did, 100%.
Well, she was very enthusiastic
But
at
I
the
feel
time.
I
like
was
no one
like
would-
number one fan.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I got a question.
Teacher.
I actually remember your sister as well. She was like, excuse me. Both
And
of
I
you.
feel
It's
like you
great.
guys always had a notepad with you. You're always taking notes.
Oh yeah, I was definitely like
Which kind of is
noting
scary
things down.
when people are noting down what you're talking. You're like, oh gosh.
You know what you're talking
No,
about.
I know,
No,
but
it
you're
was-
like,
No, I think you guys are nailing it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
God, we do need to actually not be so critical. Okay, this is so off topic.
Sorry,
so
yes.
off topic.
Yeah, not like
so
us.
the reason we got Alex on is because actually, do you know what? I was visiting a friend. Sorry, then I go on. I was visiting a friend last week in Hawke's Bay. I do follow you on Instagram on your,
Same.
you know, I mean, I have the handy honey as like, I'm a follower, but you know how the algorithm seems to just like hide stuff from you
Yeah.
if you don't interact with it? I must have been a bit rude and not liked a few posts because I just hadn't seen anything in a while. And my friend was like, have you seen what Alex is doing? And I was like, oh my gosh, we're about to do a property mini series. She would be a perfect person to speak to because what you're doing is amazing and so unique. And there's hardly anyone I know doing it. I don't know anyone else.
No, when I saw your name in the prep sheet, I was like, oh, great idea.
Why did we not think of this earlier?
I know. It's such a good idea. And because we were in London together for a few months and then you returned back to New Zealand and then you started was it your first renovation?
Yeah, that was the first flip.
Yeah.
Flip, I love it. It's so
Oh my
fun.
God, it sounds so,
Fun.
yeah, so American. Like we just
It
gonna
is
flip
so-
it. You know, what aren't there like TV programs and like how to flip it? And
I don't know.
It is very American.
Yeah.
Like when you said
Is
before, there's not really anyone like that. There are so many in the States. Frills and Drills is one of them. And she is a mother of two. And
love
she
that.
is so handy. So she's just like renovating lots of things in her house, doing up her garage, always making costumes for her kids. But when I say costumes, like they're massive masterpieces.
Wow.
So there is a lot of it overseas, but agree, there was nothing here and there was no girls doing it either. Like you see lots of guys making things or posting about it, but I could never find a girl that I know picking up a power tool. They just weren't.
I don't know what it is. I think no one's ever taken the time to teach me, and I've never taken the time to ask someone to show me.
Just like
I'm
investing.
Yeah.
Well, it's meant to be a guy's thing, right? Yeah. Power tools, you immediately think of males.
Also, even just the name, like power tools. So where did the idea come from? Can we hear about your journey into property? Because you've done quite a bit of work in this space beyond Handy Honey.
Yes. So I'll start at the very beginning. I went to Dunedin after school and I studied a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Commerce. No idea what I wanted to do. It was like, let's just go for the broadest possible thing that we can study. Like we all do. And then I worked in advertising for a couple of years and then soon realised advertising was not for me. I'd already looked at the property industry and thought that was something I would really like to do. So I started working for a company called Conrad Properties, which are one of the largest developers in the country. So I started there as like a sales administration manager. And by the time I left 5 years later, I was the head of operations. So it's kind of a funny title, but essentially what I was doing was helping the directors with anything technical. So I did lots of the legal correspondence between our solicitors and the purchasers' solicitors. I managed the agents, did all the sale and purchase agreements, managed a lot of the day-to-day sort of admin around literally building things as well, and just managing a few other parts of the business.
Is this Conrad situation?
So they sell everything off the plan. So they mainly do apartments, but they do have some industrial developments as well.
So that's like having showrooms around. You go in, you buy off the plans, and
Exactly.
then it takes a few years to build it, and then you've got your house. Yeah. So you must have learnt a shit ton.
A shit ton.
Yeah.
I was so lucky. The directors, that we used to joke, they were like my work dads. They were amazing and they had so much time for me and they just taught me so much and we just got along really well.
I really think that's the key in getting ahead in your career when you're younger is like finding people that you resonate with or like as people you
and
can
that you
look
gel
up to,
with as well.
that you have fun with and who invest time in you to teach you what they know because they've probably been around a few, like around what's the word I'm looking for? Like around the block or like, like they've done their time in the industry so they know their stuff.
Yeah.
I did that when I first got into media. I would like do little, not apprenticeships, but like internships. I'd like work for free for people that I knew were amazing at what they did just to absorb because it's the quickest way to catapult your learning in a particular space. From there, then where did you go?
So then I sort of got a little bit burnt out. So it was just a lot. And I kind of got to a point in my life where my husband and I we said we wanted to have kids soon. I hadn't done a whole lot of travel. I had finished uni and I had just worked. So I was like, either way, I need to quit to find out what I want to do, but also just have some time to myself before we had kids. So that was when I decided I was going to go to London and do an interior design course. Yes, which is
Hello, us.
Hello.
That's where we enter the conversation.
Yeah.
We were all in London together.
Yeah. So that was sort of just made a lot of sense because I wanted to travel, but I also wanted to do something really productive with my time. And it was actually my husband's idea. He said, why don't you go to London, do this interior design course? Because it brings together so many different things. Like you already have the skills in property. We as a team would like to have skills in interior design. It also is just like a fun thing to go and do. So I was like, great.
It kind of also completes the picture as well. Like you had the developer kind of skill set or knowledge and then the interior side. So then it's kind of makes sense then kind of going and doing your own thing when you've got, very complementary skill sets.
I didn't know at the time when I went to London, I didn't think that I would come back and do my own sort of flips and renovations on my own. But yeah, I came back from London and was in a little bit of in-between sort of limbo. And I was like, what am I going to do? And then thought, I have all the skills. Especially with like the legal side of things, that was a really big part of not being so scared about doing it myself.
That's such a good point, actually, because I think that it's the contracts, it's the paperwork, it's the adultness of the situation that can be really intimidating.
And that was not intimidating to me at all. And then especially with the interior design, we had just learned how to build everything in CAD. So when it came to looking at little apartments, which is what I sort of specialize in, it was so achievable. And I thought this will be really fun, like especially about to have children. It just made a lot of sense because it is a project-based job. Yeah. Once a renovation is done and you've sold it, you're done. Like then
you're on to the next one and the next one. Yeah, but you can take a break if you wanted to in between. Yeah.
I quite like that. I think actually it's something we've spoken a lot about because for us it's like sort of consistently busy, and I think that that's quite common in a startup. It's like it's always hustle. In some roles, you kind of get that ebb and flow of like intense work, and then you can kind of like chill for a few weeks, and you've got a campaign starting. I really like the idea of kind of going hard and then just like taking your shoes off for a bit. Like I think it's quite cool and also to have like a completion of like, I did a thing. This is all the work I've done and I've completed it, and I can kind of like wash my hands and walk away.
It is the most satisfying job because you do all this planning, you see it go from absolute disaster and then hopefully it ends up looking amazing, but it's all like that is my favorite part of the job because it is so satisfying.
And you can literally see the progress. Do you know? Like you're painting a wall, you've done the wall, you've pulled out the bench top. You can literally see progress, whereas sometimes in probably a lot of people's jobs, it's like you're either a cog in the wheel and you don't actually see that progress being made.
I would say that the one massive con though is you see the progress, but it's not monetary. So you have to really change your mindset from being in a salaried role where you get money in every week to going to doing a project-based work. You might get paid twice a year. So you have to be so open to that being the case, but also happy to be working day in and day out for nothing.
That is
for like nothing essentially. Yeah.
And
have a plan in place, because if you then just got this big lick of money and you're like woo, and then you're like, oh, shit, I've got nothing for the
next 6 months. That's going to last you for 6 months. Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
You're not being paid.
No.
It's quite weird to think about, and I guess you probably would need to be in a dynamic where the other person has a stable income, right?
Which we're not. My husband works
ideally.
Yes. Ideally, 100%. I was for years, obviously, at Conrad. I was the stable, salaried person while my husband was starting his own property development company. So going from having that to suddenly not, and both of us suddenly not, is definitely you make sure that you've planned so that it's not an issue. It's really more of a mental thing, for me at least. It was very mental.
What were some of the things that you had to adjust or like change about your lifestyle when you realized that you couldn't really plan week to week, or you knew exactly what you had and there was no wiggle room because you knew there might not be something coming in for 6 months?
Yeah, I think there were definitely things that you have to change a little bit, like planning when you're going to go on holiday and you can't just buy that new outfit, or you just have to be a little bit more considered about what you're doing. But also it comes down to managing risk. The whole point of doing well in property development is managing risk. You have to have plan A, B, C, D. You can't just have plan A and hope that that's going to come off.
And do you mean like plan A would be like, right, it's going to cost X and it's going to be done by this amount of time. And then, oh no, it costs way more. Oh, and it's not going to be done in time. Like that's plan B. And then plan C is like,
Yeah, exactly. So in my experience, my plan A would always be to renovate and sell within, say, 2 or 3 months. It sounds fast, but we're working with tiny properties here, so that's very achievable. But worst case is you can't sell it. So what are you going to do if you can't sell it? You're going to have to rent it out. What are you going to rent it out for? How long can you rent it out for? Keeping in mind that you've just renovated it. You've probably just spent 30 or 40K in it. So you need to do so many feasibilities on something before you decide to start doing it, because you could be holding on to it for a while. So you always have to make sure that you've got a backup that you're really happy with.
Do you like spreadsheets?
Absolutely.
I'm saying a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of scenarios, a lot of assumptions. Yep.
Let's say someone's listening and they've been thinking about wanting to flip properties, or at least give it a go, like try one. How many scenarios genuinely do you need? Like, I know you were sort of saying A, B, C, D, E, but like the best case scenario would be, okay, I want to renovate it in this amount of time and I'm hoping to add this much value and sell it for this. And it's figuring out the difference, the timeline. What is the way that you stagger those scenarios?
It totally depends on the property. So every property is different. In my case, because they were relatively small, I really only had 2 scenarios because I knew that it wasn't ever going to get worse than renting it out. So the way that I would analyze a property is working backwards. So I would find something and I would think, how much can I realistically sell this for once it's been renovated? Best case scenario, what am I going to get? That should always be quite a conservative number. You're not going to be able to count on getting that exact number. And then I would calculate how much I'm going to have to spend on it. So what are my priority items? How much are they going to cost? And I would do quite a bit of research into that.
And then would you add like a bit of a buffer?
100%. Yeah. Contingency is really important. And then you say, what do I need to buy it for? Don't start at what can I buy it for and then work out the rest. You need to work back because you don't want to be overpaying. The most important thing is buying well, and that's how you're going to make money.
It's
not
really good
selling
advice.
well. You've got to buy well.
And so that basically means buying something that is either maybe below market rate and you're not having to put in so much to get it to that ideal selling. So would that then be in terms of like what you have to put money into? So the research piece of what needs to be added here, like is it paint? Is it carpet? Is that kind of the way that you would think about it?
Definitely. You want to go into a space and already have a vision and already know that there's not major structural things or water tightness issues that you have to deal with that might be surprises. So I would always go for properties that have really good bones. You want to make sure that you're doing cosmetic stuff, but also things that don't necessarily require council consent. So for example, I'd never move any plumbing. Kitchens, the sink stays in the same spot. Bathrooms, shower stays in the same place. Toilets in the same place. Because otherwise, if you're going and moving all that stuff, you might think it's adding value, but it's going to cost you a lot more in time and in money.
Gosh, that's really good tips.
What about other things? Is there other things like putting up a wall or, like you say not structural, but is there things, would you go into a space and go, oh, this is enough to be 2 bedrooms and can add value that way?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think adding walls like partition walls, that's not structural.
Yeah.
That would be you're taking out a big load-bearing wall. That would be structural. So in the apartment I did in Newmarket, I added a partition wall. It was like these awful sliding doors when I bought it, and it was just a 1 bedroom. But by putting the wall in, it meant I got really good use of space in the living room and then really good use of space in the bedroom. So it just immediately added more value because it was clearly a 1 bed and then not a studio. So definitely doing things like that where you can separate the spaces and create a better use.
And for someone wanting to get into the space, is it best to go and look at a whole bunch of properties to get an idea of how to use a space well?
And also, what would you even look for when it comes to okay, cool, I'm understanding what I'm looking for to spot a property that's going to be good within my budget. I can do cosmetic, facelift to the house, and then what are the sort of, key things that you would look for?
Because I wouldn't know what the first thing, I'd walk into a house and be like, this looks great, and not realize, oh, actually, if you put a wall there or if you redid the kitchen but kept the sink in the same spot or, how do you spot those opportunities?
I guess it is exactly that. You just go in and you think, obviously, we're looking for properties that need work. They're going to look awful. You're going to go in and go, this is terrible. That's what you want. I think the biggest thing though is less to do with the property and more to do with the vendor. So I would always look for properties that have a stressed vendor. So you want to call the agent and you want to ask them as much as you possibly can about when they bought it, why they're selling, what urgency they have around it, their appetite for an offer. Because you could find a property that doesn't actually need that much work, but the vendor's really wanting to get it off their hands so you can buy it really well. Or you find a property that needs heaps of work and it's sort of in the vendor could be in the same position. So I wouldn't say there's like a list of things that you have to look for. I don't get that.
Can you backtrack? I'm not totally following
so
that.
So it's kind of like if someone is in a desperate need to sell, they'll take a better price because they need the money. There might be little work that needs doing, but you get it for a cheaper price. So therefore, when you do that little bit of work, you end up flipping it and actually getting a great price. So you want to find people that are desperate to sell.
So it's just like buying a car. You're trying to find something that someone's moving overseas tomorrow and they are kind of keen to get rid of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, look, I'll give you $2,000 cash and it's advertised for $5,000 and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
so the idea is more do your research on the person that's selling it, because if you find the right person in the right situation, you can buy well.
100%.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this industry is renovation equals more money. That is not the case. I know so many people that have bought properties because they think we're going to add so much value. There's so much work to be done. And they've turned down a house that is done, which they could have bought better.
Right, because by the time they've poured all this money into the renovation, they actually almost have spent more than what they would have if they just bought something that didn't even need to be renovated.
Well, they buy something that needs to be renovated, but they didn't buy it well. And then they spend all this money on the renovation and wonder why they can't make their money back at the end of it.
Right, so actually the key to success when it comes to buying and flipping is in the purchase opposed to the rest of it.
100%. You have to buy well.
How many houses at this point have you renovated and flipped?
So my first renovation was a home that I bought in Mount Eden in 2018, and that wasn't a flip. That was, we lived in it for 4 years and renovated it. And then my first actual flip was at the end of 2023. I started it in October and finished it in March. And that was a little studio in Mount Eden. And then after that was the Newmarket apartment. So 2 flips.
I love the flip. Sounds like you're literally going and going, flip.
I wish it was that easy.
Just on its roof.
How much have you made from it? Like, what does it look like? Were they both really successful? Was one more than the other? Like, what were the learnings in terms of the difference from a financial return? Are you like, oh, I see where I went wrong with that one. I got 20% less with that and it was because of this?
Definitely. So the first little Mount Eden studio went really well. So I made about $75,000 on that.
Amazing.
Which I was really happy with.
And that's in how much time? Sorry, October to April, did you say?
I settled at the end of October and then finished in March.
5 months of work?
Yeah. And not full time. Like I was not working 8 till 6 every day. It was part-time. And I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant about 2 weeks into the renovation. So
got to sell this property.
All of that. Pregnant. But no, that one really well. I learned a lot probably from the second, the Newmarket one, and I still own that. So I haven't sold that. I put it on the market in June, which was less than a month before my due date, and thought, we really want to get this sold. But I always knew that my backup was renting it out, and it's a 6% return. So it has worked out for the better. However,
when you say the 6% return, do you mean in capital gains or in
you're taking your weekly rent, multiplying it by 52 to get the annual income that you're getting from that property and putting that over your purchase price plus the amount that you've renovated, that you've spent on renovations. So that's your initial investment. What's your return that you're getting on your initial investment into that property?
I might need a diagram later. But the idea is that you're getting a 6% return from the rental income. And even though you haven't been able to flip it yet.
Yes, I think that's the key. You want to be in a situation where you're not forced to sell. So when we say, have I lost money on a flip? No, because I haven't had to realize a loss. If I had to sell it in June when I listed it, I would have just had to keep knocking the price back and probably not have been able to make money on it. It might have broken even. But the key is not having to realize the loss. I knew that I could rent it out and wait for the market to come back, and then I would be able to sell it. So right now, if I sold it in the current market, I'd probably make about $50,000.
So wait, if we were to think about you in, just about to go into labor and you're thinking, shit, I just want to get rid of this house right now, and someone came along and wanted to buy it, and you were in a position where you just had to get rid of it, that would be someone else buying well.
Yes.
That's the example you're talking about. It's
exactly.
Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you don't want to be the stress vendor.
Yeah.
You want to be the vendor that's sitting there going, nah.
I've got options.
I've got options. I'm renting it out. Doesn't matter.
And the rental return is kind of like a dividend in the sense that if you invest in the stock market, you're putting down a lump sum of money, and then your capital gain is the share price movement, which is the house price movement. And then your rental is any dividend. So it's like it's over and above the capital gains. So
yes.
You're getting capital gains probably quite low at the moment because you've only held it for a short period of time. But in the interim, to help with that, you're getting the 6% dividend rental income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's also something that if you were doing a feasibility, say option C was holding it for 10 years, add that into your feasibility and go, I could earn, I think it's 10% over 10 years is generally the average that property goes up. So factor that in, like you're going to be getting the rental income, but you're also going to get the capital gain.
Because when you said that you did, your first flip was your Mount Eden house, there would have been no rental income from that because they're living in it, but they're getting the capital gain. And that's why you would hold it for longer. But like that's also a way to flip. You're flipping very quickly now.
Yeah.
But you could also flip. Like it's kind of what my sister does. They go in, they buy a house, they do it up, but they live in it for like 5 years and they do another one. So they're like casual flippers.
That's also a tax thing as well. If you're living in a property and you renovate it, you don't have to pay income tax on it because it's your place of residence, whereas I pay income tax on the flips.
Sure.
So that's really interesting because when I spoke to friends, because I've been thinking about doing this, maybe not in the same way, but trying to figure out if I can handle the risk of putting money in to renovate it and buying well enough that it makes sense to, and I want to hold it. I'm doing probably almost like an even different to your sister and to you, Alex. Like I would like to hold it for like a long period of time, but I want to buy something that's within my budget, which is a lot lower, and add value in a way like probably not just cosmetic, like maybe figuring out like how to add a bedroom or like that kind of an approach, but hold it and rent it out. That's what I'm thinking of doing. But I'm sort of like, this is why this is so fascinating to figure out, because it's like there's so many different ways you can make money in property, and understanding the risks and all of the different scenarios and being really across it before you decide which approach you take is so important.
Yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice is just do your research. Don't jump into anything because you get emotionally attached to something. You really need to make sure that you've crossed all your I's, dotted
I think
crossed your T's
dot your
and
eyes.
dotted your I's. Other way
I'm
around.
glad someone else gets analogies wrong. Always do.
Yeah, the devil's in the detail. And like you said, adding a bedroom, that is great. That was just not something that I had time for or appetite for at the time. I really just wanted to get into more of the trading, but definitely adding a bedroom would add a lot of value to a property.
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing. It's like trying to find the right place and the right vendor.
Yeah. It's a mix of everything. You have to find something that's as aligned to all of those points as possible. Great location, vendor that wants to sell, work that's easy. Yeah.
And where do you find the houses? Is it on platforms like Trade Me Property, for example? Or
Yeah, Trade Me is amazing. That's what I use all the time. So I set up my alerts and I'll get emails every day for certain areas and certain price brackets. So I will trawl through them, pull agents from that. But yeah, I find Trade Me the best just simply for the alert function as well. You just get everything served to you as soon as it's live. Another hack on Trade Me, which a lot of people that I've talked to, it seems simple, but a lot of people I've talked to don't know about it. So in terms of looking for a vendor that is desperate to sell, you would go onto Trade Me and you would set up all your filters. So location, price, whatever that happens to be for you. You'd get the search results and then filter by date listed. And then you want to scroll to the bottom and go to the very last page. And then all of these listings are going to be the ones that have been there the longest. They haven't just been sent out to everyone. They probably don't even have open homes anymore because they've had a failed campaign. So that's going to mean that the vendor has already been conditioned down. They probably have realized the price that they initially thought they're going to get they're not actually going to be able to get. So going through these listings fairly regularly and calling the agent and seeing what the vendor's appetite is like and how the conditioning is going is really a hack.
It's so good.
Can you talk about what do you mean by the conditioning and the calling the vendor and asking them?
The appetite.
Yeah. What does that mean?
I just mean, so say you're a real estate agent and you're trying to sell someone's house, right? And you do an appraisal. Every agent has to do an appraisal when they sell a house. So say we're going to sell this for $1 million and the vendor goes, wonderful, I would like that. List it, please. And they go away and do a campaign. They have all the open homes, and at the end of it, no one is at the auction. They're going to have to then go to the vendor and go, sorry, we haven't been able to sell it, but we'll keep it listed, but you're probably not going to get $1 million, because if you were, they would have been at the auction. The conditioning just means bringing the expectations down of the vendor, or just not even, just being more realistic with where the market's at.
So they go back to the vendor and be like, look, let's do another campaign or something at 800,000 and see what we get. And then if they still don't have anything, you just kind of, it's all about supply and demand in terms of if you keep bringing down the price, eventually people will be like, oh, this looks attractive. And that's what you're saying. Exactly. If you do that for a couple of months, you're then at the bottom of the pile in terms of Trade Me listings because you've been on there for a while. So therefore, the vendor might have been trying to sell for like 3 months, for example, and they're like, okay, you know what? Here's Alex wanting to buy it for 700,000. I'll do it because I'm sick and tired of this, or I'm desperate.
Yeah, I just want it gone.
Yeah.
And what kind of questions should people be asking the person that's trying to sell the house? Like when you call them, so when you go through and you find a listing, you're like, oh, I want to know more about this. What kinds of questions do you ask?
So you would just be calling the agent and asking, number one, why are they selling? You also want to find out when they bought it, because if you find a listing of a property and they bought it a year ago and they way overpaid for it, chances are it's not going to be the property for you, because they're not going to want to take a big loss on it. They're probably at least going to want to make their money back, in which case it's not going to make sense for a renovation.
So you would need to ask how much they bought it for,
yes,
when they bought it,
why they're selling.
And why they're selling.
Yes. Those would be the main ones.
Are people going to lie though with some of that stuff? Like why?
Real estate agents generally, and
you can tell.
You can tell, but they also, if something is wrong with a property and it's been stated to them from the vendor, they have to tell you.
Legally, they have to disclose.
Yeah, they have to
disclose. There's been a pee addict.
It's a meth house.
Yeah.
There's been water tightness issues.
Or the flooding, the recent flooding in New Zealand, like it's all that stuff.
What are the green ticks to those questions? Like if you're asking those questions and, for you're like searching for the next property that you want to buy and flip, what is green tick, green tick, green tick?
Green tick, they bought it 20 plus years ago for $70,000.
Tick.
And they have no debt on it.
Tick, tick, tick.
Tick, tick, tick. That would be great.
Oh, so it's like buying a car. It's like getting a grandma Suzuki Swift that she's done like 3 miles on.
And she's living down in Havelock North and she's happy as Larry and just wants to get rid of it.
And you're like, look, I'll give you double your money. I'll buy you a house in Herne Bay for $140,000 because you bought it $70,000.
Okay.
Yeah, other things in terms of, aside from the vendor, would be going back to the good bones. You want to make sure that there's nothing structurally wrong with it. There's no water tightness issues. I personally love older buildings that are block work. People love block work. So that's like concrete blocks, like big concrete bricks, essentially. Really soundproof, relatively insulated. They just stand the test of time. Nothing is going to knock that over,
And how do you find out the good bones? Is that through a lawyer doing a check for you?
No, I think that's more just knowing what materials are good.
Research, essentially.
Yeah, I think just research. Also, getting expert opinions. Do not be afraid to call a builder, get them to come through and give you their 2 cents. You want to make sure that you've got the experts on your side. I'm not sitting here saying I'm doing all of this on my own. Like my Sparky is amazing. My plumber is amazing. You've got to have your subbies that are on your side and can quickly come and look at something for you. I know my Sparky used to come and lift heavy things for me because I was doing these renovations, 7 months pregnant. So yeah, I think it also comes down to, if you're not sure about something, you want to have the expert to ask.
What about location? Is location a big one?
A massive one. Yeah, a really big one. So how close everything is to public transport is a really major one. A big learning that I've taken from the Newmarket apartment is that it didn't come with a car park. And I would never buy something that doesn't have a car park again, because that's been a real deal breaker for a lot of people.
When I was renovating my house and my dad was like, you should put in a bath. I was like, Dad, I can't remember the last time I had a bath. Like I was like, a shower's fine. He's like, no, but if you want to resell this and you cut out pretty much anyone with kids, and I was like, oh, such a good point. So it's like things that you might not use, like you might bus to work every day, but when you want to sell it, it's like there's people that have cars and want off-street parking if they've got kids that they're trying to wrangle from the car. Like there's so many things. What about an apartment building going up and like blocking out the light and the view and everything? Like it's so hard to know that stuff though.
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You really can't just like pin it to a list, because every property is so different. Say, I probably would steer clear of things that are right next to lots of council housing, for example. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers a lot of buyers. So you just have to put yourself in a buyer's shoes and look around and go, what about this area might be a no-go?
When it comes to the actual cosmetic renovation, when you're adding value and you're trying to figure out, let's say you've done your budget before and you know all you can spend is $70,000 on this renovation, how do you prioritize where that money goes so that it looks great, not cheap? But, like how do you balance not blowing out your budget, but making sure you're adding enough value and making it look great? How do you work that?
And also like prioritizing, people might put a lot of emphasis on it, having a kitchen bench rather than, in a cheaper toilet, or, where over your experience have people actually
seen value?
Yeah, focus on the most value.
Yeah, definitely. I think kitchens and bathrooms, that is my number one place that I would always see to add value. I'd always redo the full kitchen. There's nothing worse when you go into an open home and you see some mold in the corner. You want everything to look fresh. So kitchen and bathrooms would be my first port of call. I would also say get 3 quotes for everything, and do not always go with the cheapest one. You want to know exactly what they're covering and what labor they're covering, so that you're not stung by hidden costs. So am I going to have to get my plumber to install the sink, or is the kitchen installer going to do that? Little things like that you have to know who is doing what when.
I actually had a funny situation when I went to do my renovation, and I got told, make sure you get 3. When I was choosing a builder, they were like, make sure you get 3 quotes and add them together, because that's what you'll be paying. And I was like, bullshit. Anyway, it came to exactly 3 times what I was quoted. And I was like, oh my God. So yours is a bit of a different situation. You're doing
Is that true though for renovations as well, like for what you're doing?
I would definitely say have a healthy contingency. I don't know if I go 3 times, but with the small renovations I'm doing, I have a fairly good idea of what it's going to cost. And with the contingency, you're usually fine. But I mean, I'm getting quotes up front as well and making sure that I'm locking in as much as I can. And I don't like not knowing what the final cost for something's going to be.
It's like going to get your hair cut and you don't get your quote, and they're like, we did balayage, so it's $500, and you're like,
well, I can't return it now.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good tip.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of learnings from my renovation. Don't worry. Yeah,
you can get to those another time. What do you think are some cons that people haven't thought of when it comes to this? Because I think that the idea of making money in property sounds super exciting and like starry-eyed, and so many of our parents have made a lot of money in property, or the 2 generations ahead of us have done well. It's a lot harder for our generation to make money and significant amounts when it comes to houses, whether you're renovating or you're buying and holding. Can we just go through some like very realistic cons to this approach to property?
I think what I touched on earlier, the inconsistency of income, I think that is really hard adjustment. It's hard work. Like it's quite labor intensive depending on how much you decide that you want to do or not. Unfortunately, I was pregnant, so there was certain things like painting a studio, which I wasn't going to do.
And is that because of the fumes or like?
Yeah. I was like, it's probably not great if I'm stuck in like this
high
one
paint.
high on paint fumes.
Is it lonely?
It is.
Yeah.
I really miss working with people in an office. But having said that, you find subbies that you love.
I'm going to say you find people to talk to, or you talk to yourself or something.
Talk to the
Finding
neighbours.
a playlist. Yeah.
It is quite hard to stay motivated. You're your own boss. You have to make sure you're getting up and you're ripping up old carpet that you don't want to touch.
Have you found anything weird?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
So I didn't want to know this, but I can say it now because it's solved.
Is it a dead body?
It was.
Oh my God.
No.
What happened?
I didn't find it. So the Mount Eden renovation that I did, one of the neighbours came down one day, and this was about 3 days after I had ripped the carpet out, and he said the previous tenant died in here.
Oh my God, and you didn't know, and you were touching the
They
carpet?
didn't find him for a week.
Oh my God.
I know. And I had just ripped the carpet out.
Hold on, let's just wait, hold on. So sorry. This isn't funny, by the way. I don't know why I'm laughing.
I can just imagine you, like the neighbours coming down, you're like, hi, how you doing? Yeah, you've just been ripping up the carpet. Yeah. And then they're like, do we tell
So
her?
sorry, but they didn't find him because they didn't know where in the house he was, or
No.
it was
Was
the
he
parent.
old?
He was
no.
I know.
Oh,
It's
that's so awful.
That's my worst
heartbreaking.
fear.
So
Oh my God,
awful.
that's awful. And
His family were all overseas, so I don't think they knew what was going on.
But that's
your
the kind of thing that you
grandparents
wouldn't
every day.
have. You wouldn't necessarily have that like written down anywhere though. Like, how would you know that about a property or space? Like, because there would be some pretty horrible things that have happened in houses, but you don't know.
No, well, unless the people selling the house, in this case, I think it was his brother in Australia, unless he had told the agent, they didn't need to tell me anything. And the agent actually had no idea. I rang him and said, did you have any idea that someone actually passed away in there? And he was like, no.
I guess you don't have to disclose. Like if I died in mine and then my family wanted to sell my house, yeah, you don't have to disclose that to the agent. I don't know why. Yeah.
No, I don't think you would have to.
Oh my God,
but
that's
yeah, the
so-
neighbour told me and I was like,
Were you
why
like,
why
where?
did you tell me? Why did you tell me this?
Yeah,
Do not tell me
whoa.
this.
But it is pretty like it is hard work. You're doing physical labor, regardless of like how gross the carpet is. It's never going to be a glamorous job, is
No,
it?
it's really not.
it's-
You're up on a ladder half the time. You're sweeping the
Probably
floor.
dangerous as well.
Yeah, the amount of messages that I got when I was up a ladder hanging curtains at 7 months pregnant, everyone's like, get off the ladder. Like,
You're
sorry,
endangering your
I
child.
promise I'm safe.
I really think it's super admirable what you're doing. Like, honestly, I think that you're obviously so intelligent and you've got all the, you know what you're doing and you're doing it in a really clever way. But I think all of that aside, the fact that you're getting down on your hands and knees and pulling up carpet and like scraping off mold, like it's not what
glamorous,
people
No.
probably think when they think about like renovating a house and like flipping it on.
Yeah.
It's
Not glam.
no, but I really love that. I love that you're using power tools. I love that you're doing the stuff that's so traditionally what guys would do for a job and not think twice about it. Like I don't know anyone else doing it who's a woman, which I think is awesome.
It's fun. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I reckon you would have a lot of people that would have like a lot of respect for you for what you're doing.
I agree.
They might not say it, but I would imagine that a lot of people are thinking. And it's cool now that you're putting stuff on social media because people are seeing what you're doing behind the scenes. It's not just the like, here's the nice finished product. You're showing the nitty gritty in between.
Yeah, I think especially all my girlfriends, they love it. There's so much that girls don't know about renovating or power tools, but it's honestly so easy. Once you are comfortable using a hammer and a drill, the other stuff is not so scary. I would say though, I get quite a lot of help from my husband as well. I borrow his tools all the time and I don't always return them, and he has major qualms with that, so sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had to cut down a curtain rail, and so I got our grinder out. This was a few months ago, and I called him and I was like, where's the blade for your grinder? And he's like, sorry? But why are you getting the grinder out? So a grinder is like you cut metal with it, like there's sparks flying everywhere. He's like, what are you wearing? I'm like, just my exercise pants. He's like, do you have shoes on? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, I'll tell you where it is, but you first have to put some closed shoes on.
Put some protective
Put some glasses on.
Yeah.
Like he gave me glasses and masks when I started doing it, and he's like, you have to wear these. I was like, yeah. And then obviously we found out I was pregnant, and I was like, oh, I really do have to wear these.
Do you know what's great though? I reckon your baby would sleep through anything now. Like if you've been turning on like a grinder while it's sleeping in your belly, you put on a vacuum cleaner around the house and it's probably just like, thank God it's like listening to the waves.
It's almost to the detriment though, because he has to be moving, or like he has to be stimulated a lot, especially when he was a newborn. He wouldn't be happy just being held or like lying there. He's like, no, I've been moving my entire life until this point. So keep moving, lady.
How do you sit down, Mum?
Yeah,
Come on.
do not sit.
Okay.
Get up.
Even using the power tools, I'm like, I would not even know where to start. Like, Hammer and drill would be fine, but grinder, I would not.
YouTube,
not.
You'd be fine. TikTok, Instagram, it's all there.
It's so impressive. I love that you're doing this.
Or everyone can just follow Handy Honey and figure out how to use a grinder and a power drill. And,
I'll be back on the tools shortly. So
back on the tools, even that's such a great phrase.
I think, in the next couple of months there should be something new coming. But
that's exciting.
Everyone's probably going to go and have a quick look, and they're going to see that I haven't been active for 6 months, but you'll see that that's because I had a child.
One thing I do want to know is, if you don't have a huge deposit, do you have any advice for people who are maybe wanting to get started or would like to get into this but aren't starting from a big base?
Definitely. So property development is all about making money with other people's money. So if you have a good development and it stacks up and you can demonstrate how it stacks up with a detailed feasibility, you're always going to be able to find someone with the money and do a joint venture with them. So then you can split the profit.
So psych.
This is sounding good.
You got to do the feasibility.
Mm-hmm. Excel.
Oh, God.
Do you say someone as in, so not necessarily a bank?
No.
Yeah.
A bank is generally historically the cheapest way to get lent money, right? But if you have a friend or a family member, someone that you can do it with that has the money, then that's a great avenue as well.
But how much would they need though? Because so is this outside of a mortgage? Are you saying?
Yeah.
Or are you saying the whole thing you do with someone that can afford to buy the house?
It could be, if you don't have the deposit, then you could always find someone to help you with that and get bank funding. Also starting small, like the numbers that I'm working with are not huge. I bought both of them for well under 500K. So even if you are getting money from the bank, the deposit that you have to have isn't that big compared to, say, buying a big house. So start small.
So psych.
Oh, my brain's just ticking because that's probably the similar amount that I would be looking to spend. But then I'm just thinking, if I'm not the one doing the renovations and I'm paying someone else to add the value like you've done, and you're only making around 75,000, which is great. But if you're paying contractors, there's a pretty small margin there.
I see what's happening here.
No, I'm not going to get her to go and rip up the carpet for me.
No, yeah.
What find
we do a joint venture?
Well,
no.
You find someone, like Alex is finding someone that has the money. She has the skills.
Oh my God, can you stop speaking to me like I'm a child?
Sorry. No, I was just like, had this light bulb moment. I was like, oh my God, like you don't have the time to do it. She does.
No, but do you know what my point is?
Yeah.
It's like, unless you're doing the actual renovations, there's because I have the mentality that what you were saying before, you just renovate and you get to add value and then you make money. Like if you've been doing 5 months of work on a house and you think about that's actually contracted out to builders or plumbers or sparkies or whatever, painters, there's not a lot of like margin there to make money is kind of what I'm meaning.
Definitely. So that just comes back to the numbers. You need to make sure that the property is going to work for you.
You factor that into
You have to factor all of that in.
Cost.
Yeah. But also if you're being able to do that while you have a full-time job, I'm factoring in this is my job.
That's your salary.
Yeah. Right. For you it's just a nice
because if
bonus.
You broke even on a property, so you bought it, you added value and you sold it for that price, you made no money. Like for you, that's a terrible situation because you've just worked for 5 months for free, essentially. So even though she's made 75,000, for that one property that you made 75,000, like that's effectively paying you.
Yeah.
But when you do your numbers, are you factoring in paying yourself like a salary, or are you thinking of the amount that you can make at the end is your salary?
The amount that I make at the end is my salary.
Yeah.
So if you did 2 a year and you made 75,000, then you're making 150,000 a year.
Yeah.
Is kind of how you think about it.
Exactly.
What would you say to, a young buck like me who is wanting to...
Aren't you older than Alex?
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is thinking about getting into this or thinking about the idea of buying, adding value to a house and selling it on? Do you have any, I don't know, like words of wisdom or questions to ask yourself before you decide that this is, we've spoken about so much. I think you've been really honest and like shared so much insight. I'm like still not 100% sure as someone that's like trying to figure out the best way to make money in property, because let's be honest, we're all just trying to make money, right? Like whether it's a buy and a hold or it's buy and add value. Like,
I guess to summarize what we've talked about, feasibility, be happy with your plan B, plan as much as you can. So what is it going to cost? Where could the potential blowouts be? Get 3 quotes for everything. And make sure that you have reliable subbies working with you. You need to find the right property.
I think it's just a case of if you're going to go down this road, like make sure you do all the research and the planning, because you'll easily get burnt if you just jump in, find a house you love, you haven't taken all the risk approach, put in all the costings, got 3 quotes, done a plan B. If you haven't done all that, then it's not going to be something that you can do successfully time and time again, because you probably lose money in the first one and then
I think that to summarize all of that together, it's like take all emotion out of it. This is a job, and everyone's job is to make money, right? This is no different. So you just need to do the numbers.
Thank you. It's the kick up the arse I needed. Can I ask one more question? Because you're obviously really knowledgeable about the property market in general. What do you think is going to happen in the next like few years? Like I'm just
asking for a friend.
No, I know that it's not like you can't guarantee anything and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just, as I'm doing my research, because I am really trying to understand my options and like what's going on and like asking questions, I just would love to know what your thoughts are on the property market in general.
So the best person that I follow is our friend Tony Alexander. I think that he has some great insight. He's an economist. He does lots of reporting on the New Zealand property market. I think in the next couple of months, we're going to see a lot more listings come to the market. They've dropped the OCR, so I think money is going...
Official cash rate, that is.
Yeah. Which means what again?
The interest rate, like
interest rates will drop.
The interest rate that the central bank in New Zealand sets and all the other banks follow. Yeah.
So money is going to be cheaper for people to get. So therefore, there's going to be more people that want to buy property. So
that means that the prices of the properties will also start to go up.
To go up. I mean, it's just supply and demand. When there's more people out there with money to be buying, then there's going to be less deals to be found.
Yes.
I just like really feel like it's my time. Like I know this sounds so weird, but you know, and I'm not sure if I sound like a used car salesman, but I really feel like this is my opportunity and I don't want to miss out.
Be careful of FOMO, because if you're feeling like you're going to miss out, there's going to be other people out there thinking they're going to miss out, and that's when you risk overpaying for something.
Because everyone's kind of bidding against each other and they're trying to get
if you can put that feeling aside, I definitely think it's a good time to buy. It's still a buyer's market. So if you can get your ducks in a row quickly and get in there.
Trust me, I'm trying. Let's not
There's
go
just
there.
one duck.
It's one duck
really,
that's just really not playing ball. Come on, duck. Yeah, I'm trying to get pre-approval and it's proving to be very difficult.
Yeah.
But when she buys a house, we're going to have a big house party.
Yeah, we're thinking we can have a house party.
Yeah. Well, if you buy a big reno, we can do a demo party.
Oh my God.
That'd be quite fun. We all dress up in high vis.
It'd be so fun.
Yeah, you have to bring your safety glasses.
Yeah, safety glasses.
Yeah.
Safety first.
Alex will come with her grinder. We'll be like, whoa. Okay.
My slender
turning it up. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like this has been so insightful.
Yeah,
and
I want to start flipping.
Do you? Yeah. I reckon you'd be a terrible flipper.
I'd just overpay for it, yeah.
No, you'd overpay, but I also cannot imagine you getting down and dirty.
Do
you think?
Yeah, I definitely, could.
I'll believe that when I see you do one small job that involves like mold or
I painted
dirt.
like my whole entire house because I wanted to save money on a painter, and God, and then he killed me. But
painting is hard.
Paintings, I was like, I'm going to pay a painter every time.
Also, like professional painters, they're professional for a reason. If you tried to paint your house, I'm sorry, it probably looks shit.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and at least me, that's one job that I don't do.
And I notice things like, I'm like, damn it, I miss that corner every time I used to sit in my lounge and be like, ugh. Yeah.
It does feel like a total waste of money when you see they just use those giant rollers and you're like, I could do that. But I'm sure I couldn't.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for coming on, Alex. So
loved it. And if anyone would like to follow your journey, I'm sorry, that sounds so lame. If anyone wants to see what you're doing and like keep an eye on and the work that you're doing and the houses you're flipping, at Handy Honey on Instagram. Handy Honey. I reckon that you should get like a honey necklace or something, you know, like it's such a cool brand.
Get little buzzy bees or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me.
This conversation was brought to you proudly by Trade Me Property, a partnership that we are super, super proud and excited about, to be honest. And look, who knows how long this is going to go on for, because we're not quite sure what's happening with my pre-approval. Will it happen? Won't it happen? TBC, we'll come back to that. But yeah, thank you so much to Trade Me for allowing us to have these conversations. And you know what? Whether you are looking for property now or maybe in the future, Trade Me have absolutely, without a doubt, hands down, the most properties than anywhere else. So if you want to do a little dream scroll, have a look and see what's available, then I would highly recommend jumping on. We will come back with part 2 of this conversation next Friday. So let's just hope there's some exciting updates. But in the meantime, have a look at Trade Me. Okay, quickly, The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.